Hi guys, Claire Whitcomb here with Claire DeLune Academy. Today I am going to do a mini lesson on the bow hold. So, first, there's something I wanted to say about tightening your bow. So when you put your bow away, you loosen it with the screw at the bottom, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So you want to loosen it just enough for the hairs to be limp. So they don't have to be super stringy, just not a lot of tension on them when you're putting your violin or viola bow away. And then when you take it out to tighten it, you're going to turn it to the right to tighten it. And this is probably the number one thing that I see newbies do wrong. A lot of people over tighten the bow. So if you can tell, when I tighten it, it doesn't have to be very tight, just tight enough. So I can easily fit a finger through, my pinky through. But I don't need it much tighter than that. This is a really individual thing, but I think a general rule we all live by is that you want an undercurve. There's a little bit of a U shape going on at the tip of my bow. Now, I hate doing this, but I want to show you. If I over tighten the bow, all of a sudden my bow starts curving out the opposite way. And we don't want that. It's going to stretch your hairs out and then it'll make them all stringy when really you just need your bow to be about that tight. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the bow hold. So here's how it looks. Da, 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 da. Okay, so the bow hold is an evolution. However you begin with it, it will change over time because your hand's going to learn to relax with the bow. Muscle memory is a real thing. So the number one thing is you want to be relaxed with your bow. Easier said than done. So if you were to hold your hand up like this, just in a relaxed state, no tension in your hand, you'll notice that all your fingers are nice and curved. Your thumb isn't locked up. So you want to try to hold your bow that way. So I put the tips of my fingers, I drape them over the bow. So I have contact on top of the bow at about these knuckles. And then I drape them over lightly so that I feel like I'm on top of the bow and over the bow a little bit. And then my pinky sits on the top. There are ridges on your bow, as you can see. Some people put their pinky on the back ridge. It's kind of hard to see. I tend to put mine on the very top ridge so that my pinky nail is facing outward, facing you. So you don't want a straight pinky. You want to be relaxed with the pinky. The pinky's holding the weight of the frog, this part of the bow. I don't know why it's called a frog, but it's called the frog. So if you're straight, then you're pressing against the bow. We're not trying to use tension. We're trying to lightly hold the bow without it dropping out of your hands. So notice that my hand is kind of tilting towards the tip. I'm not facing the back side of my pinky. I'm kind of shifting my weight towards the tip part of the bow. Now the easiest way to set this up is with your bow up and down. And it will feel different when you actually play horizontally because the weight's going to feel a lot heavier on the back side of your hand and your pinky. So the trickiest thing to me is the thumb placement. So I'm trying to show you guys. There should be a little space in between the frog and the grip where you can put your thumb. So I put my thumb in the tip. I get the tip of my thumb into underneath the bow. Okay? And then my thumb curves at the knuckle and I open this up here. So I'm not like that. I let my thumb kind of open up a little bit so that this knuckle doesn't lock up. So you want to have a nice circle here so that when you're actually bowing, eventually your thumb is going to kind of move with your other fingers. But we're just talking basics. So for now, try to not let your pinky tense up. Try not to let your thumb tense up. You don't want to lock any of those joints. You want to have flexible fingers. So actually what I'm doing right now is a great exercise to try. You'll get into your bow hold and then bring your bow into your hand, really curve those fingers as much as possible so you're really exaggerating the bow hold, you're overdoing it, And then you're going to straighten those fingers out. So when you do this exercise called collé, you're practicing gaining more flexibility in your fingers. Because in the long run, your fingers are going to move as your bow moves. You can also just try it like this. You don't want to get rosin all over your shirt, but just to get an idea of what it feels like there. You can get a good picture of my thumb. So I'm not like completely underneath. The tip of my thumb is underneath the bow, and then the rest of my thumb is on the side of the bow, so that I get that nice circle here. So notice my pinky's not straight. I have a really nice curved pinky. And then another exercise you can do to make sure that your pinky is relaxed are pinky push-ups. Try pressing into that back side of the hand and really feeling the weight in the pinky. You don't want to do this with a straight pinky. This is just to understand how you hold the weight in the pinky when you're at the frog. Now when you're at the tip, you won't have to put so much weight in your pinky. When you're at the frog, it all kind of falls into the back side. So that's my recommendation for starting out with the bow hold. Just try to keep it relaxed. If you're practicing and you feel yourself tensing up, what worked for me was to stop what I was doing, redo my bow hold, shake out the tension, get it to where I want it so that my muscle memory is learning it the right way, not just what happens to be happening while I'm playing. You want to gain control over it, so don't just let it do whatever it wants to do. You need to tell your bow hold what you want it to do. So another thing you can do is tap. Tap those fingers just to make sure you're not over gripping the bow. It's a fine line. Just finding that sweet spot where you're just holding the bow enough to keep it in your hand. So say I'm practicing my bow hold, trying to stay relaxed. I would go through and maybe tap each finger to make sure that I'm not overdoing it. And you can do that in different parts of the bow. Okay? Now notice, I put my pinky right above the circle. Then my third finger sits in that U shape. My middle finger sits across from my thumb almost. You can kind of see it there. So when I first started, my bow hold was much lower. But as I've gotten more comfortable with my bow, it's moved up. And this is where I found it to be the sweetest spot for me, but I also have a heavier bow. So it just depends on your bow, what's comfortable for you. There is not one right way to play. Keep that in mind. Try to experiment. Try different things. See if a lower bow hold feels better to you or a higher bow hold. And you'll eventually settle into what works best for you as you're playing. So the only other thing that I can think of to really gain control over your bow and to not overgrip your bow is to just hold it as often as you can. If you're watching TV hanging out, grab your bow, try to hold it, tap your fingers. Just the more you are thinking about it, the closer you're going to get to being as relaxed as possible with your bow. Another thing you can do is use a pencil. If you're in school or if you're at work and you have a moment, sometimes the pencil is actually easier because it's lighter. So if you overgrip it, it's going to fall out of your hand. So you have to practice it with a very light hand. These are just some things that I did when I first started. I was a young teenager. I was 12 years old when I first started to play, so I had to go through the motions just like every beginner has to do. And what I think really helped me more than anything was trying to hold my bow as often as possible. So whether I was in school or at work or at home watching TV, I had my bow, just constantly thinking about it. And then whenever you feel your bow hold changing into something awkward that doesn't feel good, stop playing. Don't keep playing with the bad bow hold. Stop and shake it out and reset it to be the way that you want it to be. So I hope this has been a helpful video. If there's anything else that I didn't cover, I can make another one. Check out clairedeluneacademy.com for Skype lessons with me. Currently accepting new students, so check us out. And I hope that you learned something today about the bow hold. Best of luck. Bye-bye.